The global music industry is in the midst of a seismic shift, fueled by streaming platforms, artificial intelligence, and cultural cross-pollination. The way we create, share, and profit from music is changing fast, and Asia is no longer just along for the ride. From K-pop's international dominance to Mandopop's digital resurgence and TikTok hits from Jakarta to Taipei, Asia is shaping the sound of the future. Hi, you're listening to Beyond the Reefs, a show produced by Radio Taiwan International. Here we talk about socio-economic issues that are faced by Taiwan and their broader impact around the world beyond the reefs of this island nation. What exactly is Mandopop? Well, let's listen to this documentary by Taiwan's only all-English news and entertainment platform, Taiwan Plus.
So the word Mandopop that usually refers to Mandarin popular music. And so its roots can usually be traced back to the 1930s Shanghai. There was a type of popular music that is mostly jazz influenced in terms of instrumentalization, but its language was in Mandarin. But throughout all those years, there have been various of influence on Mandopop, which includes Japanese enga, which includes American Western popular music. In Taiwan, that Taiyu pop, the Taiwanese popular music, and then also the contemporary folk song movement has already put different kind of influence and then also music styles into it.
Could you tell us a bit more about how people around the world are consuming Mandopop? And had this global pattern been changing in the past decade or so?
Of course, I think things have changed in Taiwan a little. But in the recent year, I think it's not just in Taiwan, but also I think it's a global phenomenon, which is the consumptions of music have changed to be predominantly streaming based. So it does mean that people in the Sinophone world, in the Mandarin-speaking world, that they are able to listen to Mandarin music wherever that they are. And then also another, I think, change that has taken place is that the artists this day, they tour because that would be the most kind of like profitable business, from China to Hong Kong to Taiwan and then to Singapore, Malaysia. And nowadays, not just the mega stars that tour, but also I think emergent or mid-stage career of artists that they also try to arrange tour, and sometimes not even in the Mandarin-speaking world.
And how about Taiwan? How has the consumption of Mandopop changed? Is it still popular here?
I think that there are still a few Mandarin pop artists in Taiwan that have been relevant, not just culturally, but also socially, such as I think Zhelin Cai, that her songs and her music about LGBTQ plus right, and then also her approach to the global markets and her attempts. Those are still quite, I think, relevant and new. But I also think that it's a good thing in Taiwan that people are starting to listen to music of different kind of languages, especially I think the local minority languages, which are including Hakka, including Taiyu, and also including Formosan languages according to Golden Melodies or Works categorization. And also I think there had been, maybe more so in the 2000s, that this kind of idea about the PRC market, and if musicians in Taiwan should be approaching into that market. And then later on, we do know that it comes with restriction, it comes with issue of self-censorship, it comes with, there are certain topics that they might not be able to touch on if they're considering that route. I do think what is special here is that Taiwan used to be a hub for the production of Mandopop, probably between late 1970s to 2000s. But nowadays, that what we can see is not just we don't just have Mandopop here. So I do think that it's also worth to think about music should not necessarily be categorized only by languages, even though I think that has something to do with policy making and the historical background of Taiwan's cultural policy in general.
Let's start global. According to the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, IFPI, the global recorded music industry pulled in $29.6 billion in 2024, a 4.8% increase from the previous year. The engine behind this growth, streaming platforms, services like the Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube apps now account for over 69% of total revenue, with paid streaming alone making up nearly half of that. To put that into context, music revenue is now growing faster than the average global GDP, which the IMF pegged at 3.2% for the same year. The industry is not only surviving in the digital age, it's thriving. But here's what's really interesting. Asia and Latin America are powering much of that growth. Asia, in particular, saw music revenue jump up nearly 15% year on year, far outpacing growth in North America and Europe. The Asia-Pacific music market was valued at $7.19 billion in 2024 and is projected to grow at 11% through 2030. China alone is a powerhouse, with music revenue exceeding $3.2 billion, while India, through a younger market, is exploding with projected 12.8% annual growth rate. Meanwhile, South Korea continues to lead with K-pop, not only as a genre, but as an export strategy. Groups like BTS, Blackpink, and Stray Kids aren't just topping charts, they're driving tourism, fashion, and even policy. Let's not forget Japan, of course, still the second largest music market in the world after the US, where physical albums continue to sell well, and anime soundtracks dominate streaming lists. In Taiwan, artists like Joey Chou continue to hold cultural clout, not just in Mandarin-speaking regions, but increasingly on global platforms like Spotify and YouTube. The Golden Melody Awards, Taiwan's version of the Grammys, draw millions of crowds every year and are starting to attract attention from outside Asia as well. For many of us, especially Gen Z, discovering music no longer happens through radio. It's happening on TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. And let's start with TikTok. Over 75% of TikTok users in the US say they've discovered new music through the app. That's powerful. TikTok Music, already launched in Indonesia and Brazil, soon could transform the platform into a full-blown streaming competitor. On Spotify, which now boasts over 602 million global users, playlists like Radar, Equal, and Fresh Finds Asia are giving artists from Thailand, the Philippines, and Malaysia unprecedented international exposure. YouTube, meanwhile, remains the top musical platform in Asia, especially in Taiwan, India, and Japan. Over 80% of viewers in Asia watch music videos weekly, giving artists in smaller markets a real chance at virality, no label required. Another massive driver of Asia's music success is the diaspora. From Vancouver to Sydney to London and LA, millions of people with Asian heritage act as cultural ambassadors. These communities share music through social media, live shows, and cultural festivals. Even more importantly, they shape hybrid identities. Think of artists like Joji, Nikki, Rich Brian, all part of the 88 Rising Collective, blending Asian roots with Western sensibilities to capture the attention of younger audiences worldwide. The fusion isn't just artistic, it's strategic. Collaborations between Asia and Western artists are on the rise, like New Jeans with Jean-Baptiste, or Mandarin English crossover tracks like Karen CC and Bohom Phoenix. These crossovers often mean expanded reach, more playlist placements, and better monetization. Now let's talk about a game changer, artificial intelligence. AI-generated music is no longer science fiction. From melody generation to vocal synthesis, AI tools are helping artists write lyrics, master tracks, and even create deepfake duets with long-deceased legends. But it's not all good news. A 2024 study found that musicians could lose up to 25% of their income to AI-generated content within just 4 years. That's a staggering stat. Streaming platforms are already flooded with AI-created ambient playlists. Labels and lawmakers are scrambling to figure out copyright laws, royalties, and artist credits. And audiences are split. Some are amazed, others unsettled. Yet for indie artists in Taiwan, Japan, and Korea, AI offers a lifeline. cheaper production, smarter promotion, and multilingual capabilities. Like most tech shifts, it's not just about resisting change, but learning how to ride the wave. The global music industry contributes significantly to national economies. In the US alone, it supports 2.5 million jobs and contributes $212 billion to GDP. But ironically, job growth for musicians remain sluggish. In the US, employment for musicians and singers is only projected to grow 2% through 2033, slower than average. Why? Well, automation, AI, and the dominance of a few big platforms have led to a concentration of wealth. The top 1% of artists still take home the majority of streaming revenues. This is where policy and support matters. Taiwan, for instance, has invested over 1.8 billion NT dollars in cultural content in 2023 alone, helping independent artists produce music, tour internationally, and apply for digital distribution grants. The message is clear from Taiwan. Supporting local artists is not charity, it's economic strategy. Let's zoom back into Taiwan. The island's music scene is one of the most diverse and resilient in Asia. From Mandopop to Hokkien ballads to indie rock, the range of genres is vast and expanding. The Golden Melody Awards is still the gold standard. In 2023, the awards reached over 15 million global viewers, a 60% increase from the year before. On platforms like YouTube and Line TV, Taiwanese artists are getting exposure that used to be limited to regional channels. Taiwanese governments, on the other hand, their efforts to promote minority languages like Hakka and Indigenous tongues are helping preserve identity while pushing boundaries in new music. Even better yet, social media conversations around GMA topped 400 million hits, sparking huge online buzz. So why should all of this matter? Because music is more than art. It's soft power, it's diplomacy, it's identity. When Asia dominates music charts, it's not just a win for artists, it's a rebalancing of cultural capital. And when independent creators from Taiwan, Malaysia, or India start gaining recognition alongside big US and UK acts, we're seeing something profound, a redefinition of who gets to shape the global soundtrack. But that comes with responsibility. We need to ensure that the industry remains inclusive, sustainable, and ethical. And that's where community voices come in, and that brings me to our guest today. Charlie Wu is the General Manager of SWACT, short for Society of We Are Canadians Too, based in Vancouver, Canada. SWACT focuses on promoting BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, representation in music, arts, and the wider creative economy. Through festivals, showcases, and mentorship programs, and empowers underrepresented artists to share their stories and their sound. Their work reminds us that global music trends are shaped not only by big stars and platforms, but also by grassroots efforts that ensure diverse voices are heard and valued. This coming weekend, they have a big music festival taking place at 1914 Huashan Creative Park. It's called Jade Music Festival, inviting Indigenous and multilingual artists from far and wide, from Canada mostly, to Taiwan. Let's listen to our conversation with Charlie Wu. Now let's first talk about his background and what his organization strive for.
Well, I actually have a marketing and finance major, so I guess I'm using a lot more on my marketing background. Not a musician and nor an artist, but I love promoting arts and culture. And I actually got my degrees in the States, and I came into this industry as a volunteer, basically, to help out community organizations, to market their events, to find sponsors. And the more and more I do, that I feel that I need to be working with contents. So I can't just talk about getting people to support, but I also need to make sure the contents are relevant to me. I left Taiwan when I was 15, and I was in the States for about 10 years, and I moved to Canada since. So it's been about 30 years in Canada. And I have about over 20 plus years of experience producing cultural events in Vancouver and Toronto. And I've also toured a lot of musicians from Taiwan. And I'm currently a board member for Kapakoa. I don't know if you know what Kapakoa is. It's a Canadian Association for Performing Arts and a national organization advocating for performing arts sector in Canada. So with this organization back in 2017, during the celebration of Canada 150 plus, this is the birthday of Canada, the Society of Weird Canadians was found as a way to amplify the voices for the underrepresented BIPOC communities. The Society of Weird Canadians too, the purpose is to enhance public's appreciation of arts and culture. However, we have placed a strong emphasis on elevating the underrepresented artists and communities. And J Music is another event that we started about 2 years ago. It's to elevate the underrepresented language music in Canada. And so we start with Chinese language music, but it's also based on a report done by Canadian Live Music Association. The BIPOC community music is actually underrepresented in the Canadian live music. Because of that report, it actually made me to reflect on the reality of our own past. We have toured a lot of musicians from Asia, from Taiwan, but in reality, they don't actually connect with the music industry in Canada. They tour, they show up, and they're gone. But there's actually an audience that looking for Chinese language music from the region. We do try to use Asian Canadians as a base, but we do outreach to different communities, especially Indigenous communities. There's various different communities that we try to engage, but the Asian Canadians are our base. So one of our dreams is maybe one day when you turn on the radio in Canada, it's not going to be a strange thing to hear Chinese language music in the radio, right? You don't need to go to a Chinese radio station. You actually can hear in the mainstream radio stations. In a diverse country like Canada, where 25% of existing population were born outside of Canada, you obviously have a lot of diversity. But these diversity is disappearing every day because newcomers and their kids come in, they try to fit in, so they started to remove their own language from their everyday life. And so the language aspect of their culture is disappearing. In order for cultures to be complete, you can't really do it without language. Taiwan has an audience that's curious, adventurous, and also appreciates great artists. And Taiwan also has a great environment for artists to create and express without boundaries, without limitations. Like I said, language is actually been missing, disappearing. Many artists that we're presenting are actually not as fluent as they want it to be. And so there's a fear for them to actually express in Mandarin or in other Chinese language. But having an environment like Taiwan would actually help them to build that confidence and to perform together with other fellow musicians with the same type of passion or challenges. It's also another way to build that capacity. It is very difficult to do that in a other music festival in Canada because the environment isn't necessarily ready and the audience isn't necessarily expecting. So that's why it's important to have a focus on language, and that's what J Music is. And Huashan is also very important because they're also promoting Taiwanese artists, especially emerging ones, to collaborate with the world. So I think we have an opportunity to bridge the two and to bring some well-known Taiwanese artists to the lineup as well. It's another reason that we thought maybe their fan base, a free concert would be willing to come and enjoy the music with their art, the artists that they like, and also maybe venture into other artists, come to our festival for one artist, and they stay on and listen to other artists, and then they come back again and again. So this is a great partnership that we have.
Today we explored how the global music industry is changing and how Asia is at the forefront. From the economic rise of Asian streaming markets to the emotional power of diaspora, from AI innovation to the politics of playlisting, it's clear that the future of music isn't just shaped in New York or London anymore. It's shaped in Seoul, Jakarta, Taipei, and Mumbai. It's shaped by young artists with smartphones, immigrant families in Western cities, and yes, governments who see that arts as a national asset. Thanks for joining me on Beyond the Reefs, a show produced by Radio Taiwan International. I'm Joey, and I'll see you next time as we continue connecting Taiwan stories with the wider world, one ripple at a time.